we're gonna dive in. We're not gonna mess around with these questions, comments. Y'all, have you ever, like, I don't know if anybody else does this, but when my kids are hanging out, and maybe I shouldn't say this because now they're gonna know what I'm doing, I just listen. Especially when they're having a really good time, they're talking to each other, and it's like, I'm like doing something in the kitchen, but most of my ear is like, what? Because this is where you find out the good stuff, the real stuff, what's really going on, right? So Gio and I have already gotten online, we talked to all 4 of them, and we said, listen, we want to go deep. Just like tomorrow, we've asked all of the speakers and the experts to go deep and really answer the questions and talk about the real stuff. So we do have some questions. There are participants. They're gonna answer, but here's what I would like us to do. This is not formal. I mean, it's formal that we're sitting on the stage. I know all of them. They've all been at my house at one point or another. And I will say this, obviously you guys know my daughter Symone. Well, I'll introduce them real quick. And they're all in the digital playbook, so you guys can look at all their credentials and all their dots already. Oreana, I've known since, what did we figure out? 12 years old. So I've known her for a really long time. Nicole, I've gotten to know, and Gabby, I've gotten to know this past year because they were friends of Symone's while she was at Rice finishing her graduate degree. Y'all, yes, applaud that. And these 2 ladies on the end are still working on their doctorate. They're right now working on their doctorate. Talk about learning and their minds and the way they see things and the way they articulate them is like mind-blowing in such a positive way. And so that's why Gio and I wanted to bring them up to answer these questions and for all of us to gain experience and knowledge as what it's like for this generation. Because we're not done. We're not done. And this is our future. And when you hear them, you're gonna be like, oh my gosh, I'm so excited for our future. Okay, Symone, we're gonna start with you on the, what? Would you want to do an introduction? Okay. No, you guys are in the digital playbook. We're just gonna go right in, okay? And you're first, because you're gonna go right in. Okay, are you ready? Symone, what was the biggest shift in identity you experienced while pursuing graduate studies?
You didn't pass the microphone.
Oh, sorry. Thank you, Gio.
Biggest shift. Is this one like pointing towards like a specific topic or like, I guess, theme?
You can say whatever you want.
I guess one big change is moving back to Houston, and I feel like I was in a little bubble in New York, doing my own thing, graduated, of course, like she'd come and visit, but it's so different to have your parents in your life when you're in high school. And then I came back home after college and I was still living with her. So she's like, where are you going? What are you doing? So like, when are you gonna be home? So that was like an aspect of like being around, not just around my mom, but family again. That was something that was like a little bit of a shift because I feel like I've developed so much being on my own in college. So coming back, it's kind of like, she's like, well, where are you going? I'm like, girl, you never asked me where I'm going when I'm in New York. So I think I was like, okay, like.
That was the attitude.
With love. And that was a big shift for me. I would say, next big shift. I mean, if anything, there was a loss in her family. My grandmother, my mom's mom, passed away. And I think, honestly, that was the biggest shift for me, was how do I deal with the loss of this family and still survive grad school? So I think that was like a huge adversity that I had to push past. So I think the greatest thing that I learned from moving back is reminding myself the benefit of family support. I had to train myself to be independent in New York, so coming back it was kind of hard for me to embrace the support because I felt like I feel like, especially this room of women, you think like, you're like, I'm gonna do it all, I'm Wonder Woman. None of us are Wonder Woman, no one's perfect. So I think it was like really, that biggest shift was like, okay, I need to look to my family as support and not be so siloed.
And I really do welcome you to read their bios because you will see the degrees and what they've been doing, and they've been going to school and working hard. All right, Oreana, femininity in the workplace. Some women feel like they have to downplay their femininity to be respected at work. In your experience, what roles does embracing our feminine qualities play in leadership and workplace success?
Great question. Yeah, so I have 2 older brothers, and I'm a mechanical engineer, so pretty much I've always been maybe the only woman in the room, if not a couple of other women in the room. Just yesterday I was in a town hall with 80 men and myself. And so I see a lot of women in the workplace who lose their femininity because they think that it's a weakness. They see it as something that they need to hide, something that they need to downplay because it hinders their success. And so I see a lot of women who become more aggressive. You know, they feel like they need to yell to be respected. And when I see women like this, it becomes very clear to myself that that's not who I want to be when I'm older. I think that being a woman is my greatest strength because it makes me who I am. And it's a powerful and beautiful thing. And I think that the worth that we bring as women to the table, first and foremost, is our emotional intelligence. We all know how to read a room well. We know when someone is upset because of one comment they made. We know when someone's having a bad day. It's so obvious to us, and that is not a gift that men have. And that's okay, right? We're not supposed to be like men. Men aren't supposed to be like women. We're supposed to complement each other. But that is such a strength that we bring to the table, and I think that it's so disrespectful to ourselves to downplay that, right? And I'd say another strength is our attention to detail as well, right? We can nitpick, and we can use that as a negative thing, or we can use that as a really, okay, I'm back. As a really positive thing, right? We can point out where the imperfections are, where the gaps are, and then we can fill those gaps. And I think, yeah, that's another beautiful thing. And then the last thing I'll say is just we're a place of refuge, right? How many people in your lives who are going through so many struggles and don't have anyone to talk to, the moment they see you, they're like, let me sit you down and tell you what's been happening, right? That happens to me with coworkers all the time, right? We'll finish a meeting early, and before I know it, I'm sitting there another 15 minutes hearing about their kids. And why is that? It's because no one else asked, They were eager to talk about it, but no one else thought of asking. And we as women get to be that beautiful refuge for other people where our coworkers or our families, our friends can come, they can rest, they can be themselves, they can recharge. And then because they're recharged, they can go and, set the world on fire. So, yeah, a lot of beauty.
Okay, I also want to say if you want to raise your hand and have like another comment or question after they speak, please let me know, because again, this is not formal. But our 2 PhD superstars on the end, Nicole. Just tell them what you're doing real quick, like 10 seconds of what are you doing?
I thought I hit the button, sorry. I'm getting my PhD in bioengineering. So that can look like medicine, but I'm not too into healthcare. So what I'm doing is trying to make new materials. Part of that would be living materials so they can heal themselves and respond to the environment to have a more sustainable future.
So I'm also getting my PhD in bioengineering, but I'm a little bit more on the medicine side. So I'm working on engineering different medical devices that can be used in low resource settings. So for example, in regions of the country or of the world that don't have high infrastructure in hospitals or don't have enough physicians. So just making medicine and diagnostics and treatment more accessible.
Where were you?
Oh, I was just in Mozambique doing a clinical study. Yeah.
Hello, world changers. Okay, Nicole. What kind of support was most helpful to you when pursuing academic and leadership opportunities?
So I collect mentors, I like to say. When I was in undergrad, I joked that I had like 5 dads and 3 moms, obviously my parents, but also like the older students, the other professors and staff that I would like chat with. So absolutely, I would say mentorship. I had 2, one was a staff member, one's a professor. They had offices across from each other, and they would call themselves like my mom and dad, because I would go to my mom, my school mom, when I was having difficulty, when I did a lot of advocacy work. So when the school admin wasn't working with us, or like they were actively working against us, I would go to her because she had been there for years, and I'd be like, this isn't working, I don't know what's going on. And she'd be like, look, it's okay, like you're working very hard. Then he would overhear that, the dad, he'd come over and be like, come over here. And I go to his office, and he would be very supportive. Like if I was really stressed, he'd be like, do you need a tissue? Like, are you okay? But then he would look at me and say like, look, you are here, MIT, and so I guess that's really important, because what I'm about to say is, he would say, you are here at MIT, you're becoming an engineer. And it is so much more important for you to be a black engineer who graduates than Marcus Garvey on this campus and not actually graduate and burn out. So it was honestly like 2 sides of the same coin, where I had that mentorship, where I had a lot of people who would support me in my academic and leadership opportunities, but also mentors who would push me to do better. And my school dad was the person who looked at me and he was like, what's your GPA right now? And I was like, you know, like it's not where it needs to be, I want to go to grad school. He said, okay, so get it to a 4 or 5. We're on a 5 scale, so like a 3-5. And we would check in like weekly, and he'd be like, where are you at? And I'd be like, look, like this week was really hard. He was like, I don't want to hear that. Like you need to get it up. So like definitely having people look after me. And I feel like I'm at the stage in my career as a grad student now where I can take in undergrads. So I'm reflecting on what made an effective mentor. And I think that kind of communication where people are honest with you but also compassionate was super, super helpful.
Miss Gabby. Yes. You want to stand up and say it?
Sure, yeah, I can laugh. So I was at an event recently where I heard a woman say that women are over-mentored and under-sponsored. And she was saying the difference between mentoring, right, is that person you can go to and talk to, but the sponsor is the one who opens the door for you. And so I'm curious about your thoughts on that distinction in getting to Rice grad school.
Can you repeat the question?
Oh, I can, or would you?
Repeat the question, yeah.
From what I understand, you were saying that oftentimes you were at a talk and someone was saying that women are often over-mentored and not sponsored, whereas a sponsor is someone who's going to open the doors for you, and mentorship is someone who's going to let you in and talk to you. Is that a good summary? Yeah, I guess with that definition, which I haven't heard, but that seems really helpful, I would call my mentors my sponsors. The older students I look up to, they were in the same program, and I told them I wanted to do research. So they were like, I know a grad student who's looking for an undergrad. And immediately I got a research opportunity in like one of the best labs in neuroscience, and was working there for 2 years. The professors who I would speak with after class, oftentimes if someone shares their identity, they're willing to like let you in. They would connect me to other research opportunities, or like, I guess like resource opportunities, where like there was a program at school that like helped students who want to get a PhD get that. Who like did open those doors. I guess I would say I'm lucky in the fact that I haven't noticed that because I'm a woman, people haven't been willing to open those doors for me. But I also have been told by, when I was interviewing at other universities, one of the male professors called me very assertive, and it was a positive thing, but I never thought of myself as assertive, but I guess there's that, right? So yeah, I think I have had a lot of sponsors in my life.
Thank you. Gabby, how do you prioritize yourself in a productivity-driven world?
Okay, so I think a concept that's really important to me that was introduced to me in undergrad is that of community care. And I think like in this world of we're all trying to make a change and leave our mark and have an impact on people, it can be really easy to fall into traps of like self-care, right? Because we're being asked to produce so much, right? Like productivity is us like entering the line of production, right? We're making products to sell, or to, you know, like, yeah, literally to sell, right? And so we fall into these traps of community care, of self-care, that we're being sold the product of like rest, right? We're like, oh, just take a day, like take half a day, go like just do something fun, go get a drink, right? But this concept that was introduced to me is that of like, what if instead care meant that we're checking up on each other? It's more sustained. It's more like how, like, relying on our networks and like just asking each other like how we're doing, how are we as cogs in the machine, right? Because a lot of us, that's what we are, right? And so by shifting the mindset of like what care means, I think we're able to better support each other, better receive support, better rely on our communities, instead of just treating care in ways that are also products being sold to us, right?
I have a question. Yeah. So since I just remember being in college and feeling burnt out a lot, what do you specifically do to fill your burnout? Because I'm sure you feel burnt out at times as well. So what do you do? Instead of buying these products, what are you doing?
So I think that can look really different for a lot of people, but just an example is I really am filled up by spending time with other people. And so for me, that means facilitating ways that people in my life can see each other and I can see them as a result, right? So I really like to cook, and I like to cook big dinners and just invite all my friends. So like just in the middle of the week, I'll literally, like Nico and Symone know this, like I'll just make a group chat. I'll put a bunch of my friends in there. Some of them don't even know each other, whatever. I'll be like, hey guys, cooking a bunch of food tonight, come over at 7 if you're free. And I do this all the time, and it fills me up, and it's just what I can do, because I know that talking to people and getting to share food that I make is something that like keeps me going and keeps me up.
Okay, I'm gonna walk down here. Now you guys know why this panel, I was like, whew. So I'm gonna ask this question to Symone, but I actually would like all three of you, the rest of you, if you wanna pipe in, because I think this is a big question, and I think as my generation, or all of us ladies in the room, there might be a little bit of this that we see or think or assume. So when I ask this question, just kind of check your heart and go, who have I thought this? And then I'll let them answer. Why do you think younger generations are labeled as lazy? And how do you personally define success in a way that challenges that narrative?
We are evolving so at a exponentially compared to we were like 30, 40 years ago, even hundreds of years ago. I think people would think we were doing witchcraft. And the biggest thing that I try to explain is that I think our value or how we perceive success is different from previous generations. I like to tell people, I'm like, and I'm sure especially this room, imagine when, your son or daughter was playing video games when they were like 10, and in 10 years, they could be making $1 billion a year playing video games on YouTube. And, I feel like especially in my household, which like, and again, like, that's just how it is. It was kind of like, okay, boys, like, get off your Xbox. So I think, one, how we perceive success is different, and I think the way we perceive it is a rich life. And I don't mean like just financial wealth, but like a new term. We've kind of changed the term, I feel like, in our generation. That rich is like Gabby cooking me French onion soup randomly in the middle of the week because she needs to get rid of all her onions. So, true story. So I think like that to us is a rich life. I'm constantly talking to them about, I don't want to move into a random neighborhood. I want to move into a cul-de-sac where all my friends live on the same block. Because I see all of y'all and you're like, oh, life gets in the way. You're so busy adulting, blah, blah, blah. No, I want to be talking shit with my friends and we're sitting in like our driveway, like, I don't know, glass of wine, Delta 8 drink, whatever. And we're like, yes, little Tommy, shoot that basketball. So I think that there's a different mindset in terms of what we view as success. And I think the biggest thing today is that the game has changed. And especially it's against women. It's against women of color. And I think the biggest thing is we see the game and we're like, well, I'm gonna do my own thing. and I'm not just going to be like a cog in the machine. So I think that's kind of like the mindset that this generation has, and I think I really want to pass the mic to everyone else.
I think that we're seen as lazy because we have seen the consequences of not setting boundaries, and we're doing something about it, you know? Like, there's nothing heroic about being unhealthy because you were stressed during your 20s and your 30s, right? There's nothing heroic about that. There's nothing that really calls me higher in that. And we as a generation have seen the consequences of that, right? We've seen families split up, or we've seen people in our lives who have suffered health consequences, and we're doing something about it. You know, we're saying, okay, hold on. I'm the person that's in control of my life, and if I've seen, you know, my dad do this, and I don't want that for my future, then it's up to me to do something different about that. But unfortunately, some older people see that as lazy. They see that as, you just don't want to put in the work, right? Like, if I had to suffer this way, you should have to suffer this way. But in reality, doesn't that go against what generations stand for as a whole? Like, each generation should be getting better. We should be getting more whole, right? So that's why we're seen as lazy, I'd say. And then for me personally, success is being able to be at peace with myself, you know? Like, being able to sit in a room all day in silence and not feel like I'm running away from anything, from any of my thoughts, from any of my dreams or my desires. Like, just being able to sit with myself and sit with the restlessness of it all and soak it in, because it is who I am. And then the other thing that success means to me is just learning how to love well. You know, at the end of the day, I don't care if I'm a great engineer or not, but I really care if my coworker is excited to see me at work because she knows I'm gonna receive her well, right? Like, that to me is where I find purpose. And, you know, right now I don't have a family, and so the way that I give of myself is my coworkers, or like my immediate family right now. But I just hope that remains a priority for me, like, throughout my life as the people in my life change, just the ability to love well.
I think I'm going to share a quick anecdote to kind of encompass what you guys have been saying. So my mother, when she was 19 or 18, she came over here. She's from Ireland. She came over here and overstayed her visa. So she was here illegally. And she was working her ass off. Sorry, am I allowed to curse? She was working her butt off. And she was working like crazy. And she worked herself through an associate's degree. And she got her citizenship. I still don't know how, because it wasn't through marriage. And then married my dad, had 2 kids. And she was like, look, like, no one in my family was able to get a college education, right? That's why I left. So for me and my older brother, that's all she wanted us to do, right? You have to go to college. And my dad was the same. He had a college education, but for him, education was everything. My dad was like, education is the one thing that cannot be taken away from you. So my brother, he did it, right? He went to Virginia Tech for MEC-E, so excellent program. He graduated, he got the job, and he was at the computer, and he's like, I do not want to do this. And my parents had to force him to finish the 4 years at college, and he actually did not walk at graduation because he found what he wanted to do. And as my parents were struggling to get him to finish high school because he just didn't want to apply himself, he's much smarter than I am, but he didn't care for it. My parents kept calling him lazy, or like, you don't want to apply yourself, you don't want to do it. But he quit the job and he started firefighting. That's what he cares about. He cares about people. He's an EMT, and he pursued his passion. So I think, like Symone was saying, we define success differently. It's like, and as Oreana was saying, it's a rich life. And I think it's really hard to change mindsets from one generation to the next, because for my mom, education was what she wasn't able to get. And she worked so hard for us to be able to get it. So then when my brother didn't want it, she was like, what, are you like lazy, ungrateful? I don't get it. And my dad as well, he was like, I worked so hard, like I got my college education, I worked hard for you guys to be able to afford to go to like nice schools and go to college. And it's less being ungrateful, because I know I certainly was grateful. And my brother as well, he absolutely appreciated the opportunities my parents gave him. But if something's handed to you on a platter and it's not what you want, you can't really be happy. So I do see, I guess, I don't want to assume your position, but I do see how some of you guys can see like these kids are ungrateful and lazy. But as the kid, I guess my brother, I really just cannot make myself do this. Is not what I care about, right? I want to help people. I want to like be in the field. I don't want to be at a desk. So I think part of our generation being seen as lazy is just a miscommunication in terms of like what we want to do and what we see as successful.
So when it comes down to someone saying, hey, like, do you want to go get education after high school? Is that college, trade school? Do you just want to become an entrepreneur? Anything like that? Them being able to know themselves well enough to know this, I think, is kind of the right direction. They don't have to know it all, but just have somewhat of a direction, I think, will help them feel more rich, as we were saying.
I'd say make sure to teach them what happiness and what enjoying something actually looks like. Like looking back at my childhood, I felt like I gaslit myself into thinking I enjoyed a lot of things when in reality, like I didn't. You know, like I played tennis for a lot of years, and if you would have asked me when I was 15 if I enjoyed tennis, I would have told you yes. Right, Symone? Yeah, like but looking back, like I hated it. I just didn't know that I hated it, you know? Because no one had asked me like, hey, like, do you like tennis? Like, do you feel free when you're playing tennis? You know, I never really had that conversation. So I feel like that's really important to teach someone. And then the other thing is, make sure to teach them that their worth doesn't lie in their successes, right? You as a parent have that unique role to play in their life of being a safe space regardless of their actions. And so from a young age, instill in them that it's not the gravity of their success, it's that they're becoming the person they were created to be, you know? I think I think our lives could be very different if we were taught that at a young age instead of having to go through life learning that as we grow up. So.
I'm still kind of chewing on this. I think one thing don't laugh at me. I think one thing that Oreana just mentioned that I think was huge for me was like, don't really tie your identity to like success, because I remember I played soccer. I loved soccer. I actually loved the sport. But no, I did love playing it. But for me, like I was a soccer player. Like that was me. So if I didn't perform well in a game, then I was a bad person. Like I was bad. I was like not worthy. And my parents did not say that, right? This is something I internalized somehow. But I think allowing your kid to like roam and like explore different curiosities, as was also brought up, is super important, because my brother and I, the reason I know as an engineer is because my brother and I would take apart everything, and we would get into things we weren't supposed to be into, but we would take apart things and put them back together. And like I think the best thing my parents did was like accept that it was going to happen. Like my dad, he had all those tools, and he would be like, okay guys, if you're going to get into my tool set, put everything back. And I think that kind of forgiveness of like, why is there a boat in the yard? What are you doing with that motor? But being like, okay, as long as everything's away and like you deal with it and like I don't have to like deal with the headache of whatever's going on, allowed us to explore that. And like my brother figured out, you know, I really love building boats, and then he started flipping boats as a side gig in high school, so that was cool. And for me, I really love building things and taking things apart. I want to be an engineer. And they encouraged that. They didn't feed into it, like they wouldn't buy me a boat to flip, but they did allow me to have like different opportunities, like, you know, camps, or just like one thing as well was the schools that we were at had an excellent engineering program. And from a young age, my parents saw that my brother loved tinkering, so they made sure we had the means, thankfully, to move to a district where there were engineering programs. So I think it can be hard to not want to push your kid into something, especially if you see that they have a knack for it. But I think stepping back and letting them have that freedom to explore and not tie themselves to one thing.
I think this is probably very similar to what a lot of y'all have said, but just knowing that you can do things just because they make you happy. Like, I guess like when I started undergrad, I liked a lot of different things, and I was like figuring out what to major in. Eventually I decided on physics, and that was a whole conversation with my parents, right? Because they were like, what do you do with that? You know, they're like, you can't go to a company and be a physicist, right? What does that mean? But I loved it. Like, I love just sitting down, doing math, solving a problem, and learning this, like, how to be a problem solver, right? And that was like a really difficult thing for my parents to accept, because I think in that generation, it's like the degree that you get has to have a job title associated with it, right? You like study engineer to become an engineer, right? Or you study like, you go to medical school to become a doctor. A lot of like, it's really hard to become a physicist, right? But I did it, and I loved it, and I still love physics. Eventually I realized that I can use physics in the biosciences, and so I now make like physics-based devices. And I think like being in a position that allowed me to just do what I loved and like study something, like I don't know how I'm gonna get a job out of this. I don't know what I'm gonna do, but it taught me so many skills. It taught me how to think. And now I found like a place that I truly love, right? Which is applying these like basic physical principles to global health. And I hope to have a career in that. Like that's like just so valuable, right?
Y'all are so wise and you're so young. And I know like my generation, I got lucky because I lost my father when I was really young. That's the only way I learned. Otherwise I would have been a hot mess burnout. And I know y'all are there and y'all like, how did y'all become so wise without having, and this is like, it's just, as a parent, you want your children to be wise and healthy and make these wonderful decisions that all of you are talking about, but you don't want them to go through these ugly, ugly, ugly things that some of us have been through in our 40s to finally figure it out. Like, and y'all figured it out. Like, and how? Like, how did y'all learn so much so early?
Okay, answer that real quick, each one of you, like real quick.
I don't have an answer. Someone else go. Well, I'm gonna think.
I'd say my Catholic faith. I learn a lot from just being involved at church, a lot of formation, and just time in prayer that just really shaped who I am as a person.
You're not gonna like this answer. I think that you need hardship to actually like gain that kind of knowledge. And like that means something different for everyone, right? I'm not saying like losing a relative is really, really hard. But I think, I mean, all of us up here are women of color, so you can imagine like the struggles going through different volumes. I think, unfortunately, I just want to say like struggle is necessary. But I understand the instinct to want to shield your child from that kind of pain. So I think putting them in communication with other people with like completely diverse backgrounds and experiences so they can learn from other people. I think a lot of the learning that I've had was just through conversations, if not through experience, then through conversing with other people of different backgrounds.
Okay, I feel like I have a very specific answer, and that's that, like, throughout my life, and, like, my mom has told me this also, like, retroactively, I was always friends with older people. And so I feel like having, like, you know, in high school, I was a freshman, but I was, like, in an orchestra that, like, had like a bunch of seniors in it, right? And so they became like my closest friends, right? When they graduated, the next set of seniors became my closest friends, right? And I feel like very similarly in undergrad, and now like we're in a PhD program where like Nico and I we're 23, and there's like, you know, people that are like 30, yeah. Like 35 even.
Sorry, that's
like,
not that.
You know, but so like, sorry, they're not that old. They're really young.
They're just not our age.
Yeah.
We're just not the same age.
But we're like, we're just like in an environment where the people that we're just in community with are older than us. Like they have experienced different things. And like, that has been like a pretty constant theme in my life. And my mom thinks, like, I mean, I agree with her, but she has like very cleverly pointed out that she thinks that like, that's why I was able to like aspire to like do so many things, is because like I was always like looking up to people, right? And that's like the same thing as like, you never want to be the smartest person in the room. Like you're at the best position if you are the dumbest person in the room, right? Because you have everybody around you to learn from. So I love being the dumbest person in the room.
Yeah, I feel like the reason why I passed the mic is because I was thinking like more on Nico's turns, that I feel like the challenges I've been through have really shaped and evolved who I am today. But I think there's healthy ways to teach your children resiliency. And I think also I learned my biggest lessons from failure. So maybe there's healthy ways to implement failure in some of the guidance that you offer.
Okay, we're going to wrap it up with one question, and then we can do Q&A real quick if anybody else has any questions. And this is loaded, but this is a non-judgment space. So really, we want to learn. Tomorrow we're coming, we're hearing all the experts. We want to learn what you ladies have to say. So the question is, If you could tell this generation, all these generations, without any judgment, before you wait. If you could tell all these people, all these ladies and all the different generations without judgment, one truth about what it's really like to be a woman today, what would it be? No judgment. Does anyone want to go first?
Wait, so just one word? What is it, one word?
No, one truth. Like,
One
what
truth.
what one thing would you want to share with all of us without any judgment? There's no judgment here, but what would you want us to really know about what it's like to be a woman today?
There's so many different ways to feel insecure, I think. Because as much as I love technology, I love social media and how it brings us together, it can also tear us apart. And I think like the biggest thing for me is like the comparison game. So I think right now, especially growing up in that I think is something I wish that I could like transfer to y'all's brains. Like growing up with social media, I think is like crazy. So I think that's the biggest thing.
I think just the truth is that it can feel really exhausting to be a woman nowadays, because ironically we have so many opportunities that you feel the expectation to do it all. Like you feel the expectation to be a professional woman who has a career and is successful and gets good grades, but also like knows how to build a home and cook, but is also beautiful and is also healthy. And like at times, if we are not aware and we aren't aware of the expectation that we're holding ourselves to, then it just becomes exhausting instead of it being actually this beautiful and life-giving privilege that we have.
I think that the stoicism that was necessary in past generations is not helpful to us. So from my impression, at least from what I hear from my mom as well, if you wanted to have a career, you could not be vulnerable, you could basically not be a woman, right? You can't show any flaws. You have to be better than a man to be in the same room as a man. And I think now that we have a bit more, opportunity, and I look up to like older women who have made it. And I think back to an interview that I was having for a fellowship, and it was two people. One was a black man, and one was I don't actually know her race, but it was a woman. And I was asking them for advice because it had flipped. And I asked both of them, I was like, how do you guys deal with imposter syndrome? Because I can imagine as being a woman in like sciences and as a black man, like there are often not people who look like you. And the answer that I got from the woman was that she's like, I got the sense that she was covering up any kind of vulnerability or any kind of like feeling that she had that she didn't belong. And I just feel like that entire mindset of like, never be vulnerable, never show your flaws is no longer useful. And I think it's so much more powerful to destigmatize what you've been going through and what you have to deal with than it is to like show like a clean face and be like, no, I did it all and there were never any problems. Especially at least when you're giving advice to younger generations, because I understand, at least now in the corporate world, it still might be necessary because there is that kind of balance you have to play between professionalism, unfortunately, and vulnerability, because if you start sharing too much, now people are like, why are you talking about all that? Like, you might not be cut out for the job. But I think just being more vulnerable is necessary, especially when mentoring the next generation.
Okay, what's really coming to mind to me is like the idea of success, and like as Nico was saying, like I think in prior generations it felt like being on top was the goal, right? But a lot of times what we don't see is that being on top like causes you to perpetuate a lot of harm, right? So like I guess for a very simple example, like what does it matter if you're the first woman president of a country if that country is like, going out and doing really bad things, right? Or if you're like, you've made it really, really top to a company, but that company is like spilling chemicals into the environment, right? And so like thinking about success in different ways and like more than what position am I in, like what ranks have I achieved, and more like am I causing harm to the communities that I care about, or am I like building the world that I want to see for my own generations and for the generations that come after me? So I think our generations are thinking a lot about that.
Okay, does anybody have any more questions for this amazing panel?
I just want to say thank you. I feel like this is so incredible. I feel like you guys have voiced feelings that we have kept inside and never expressed. And the fact that you guys have the courage to sit up here in front of a table full of strangers, just thank you so much for that. I mean, everything that you guys have said, it feels so good to know that this is what the next generation is. Like, I'm so proud of each and every single one of you. Just keep doing this. Like, we need this. Thank you so much. Like, seriously.
I would add on to what she was saying, don't forget it. And don't forget it, and then don't stuff it down like, like I gotta do this next or that next, because I think to that point, there was voices inside of my head that wanted to speak out louder and be heard several times, and I just kind of stuffed her down for so long. So don't forget who you guys are as you grow and become the next generation.
In case you guys couldn't hear, Kirsten was saying, don't forget. Don't forget what you just said to all of us. Don't stuff it down. Okay.
We'll send you those bits.
Go ahead.
A question, okay?
Yeah.
Okay, what do you think, without really knowing any of us, but kind of knowing generalities about our generations, what are the biggest lies that we believe about life?
Ooh, good question.
I think we believe the lie that we can't have it all. Like, I think that we settle a lot in life. We convince ourselves that we don't deserve the life that we really want. We're like, well, being a mom is supposed to be hard. So like, I'm not supposed to enjoy it, or being married is just really difficult. Like, I'm not supposed to enjoy my marriage. We don't think we can have it all. And I refuse to believe that. Like, I think that you can still have it all, even though life is hard. I think that as long as we continue to believe in ourselves and believe what we deserve and dream big, we can have a life where we have it all and we don't allow those hardships to define our joy.
Did you want to say something?
I think, and I often am called naive for this belief, but I feel like oftentimes as you get older, you get a bit more jaded and you don't believe that progress is possible. So whenever I talk politics with my parents, it's never like divisive or anything, but I'll say like what I want. And they're like, okay, well that's like idealistic. And I'm like, right. However, like if we want to get to where we need to be, you have to believe in it, you have to fight for it. You can't just like sit and settle and be like, well, this is how the world is. Because then I'll like speak about like how like in past societies it was possible. Anyway, without getting into the weeds, I think believing that it can't be done. Like we'll never have a woman president, like it's never gonna happen. Or like we'll never be able to make sure that no one has to be homeless. Like I'm called naive for being like, I think we should be able to feed everyone. Like, okay, well we can't do that. But like, yes, we can. And I know as a young person, it's like, okay, well yeah, of course you believe that and there's so much bureaucracy, but like there is so much to be fought for. This is also my advocacy side coming out, but there's so much knowledge had as well in people who have like fought for this in the past and like now they are jaded. And I feel like there's a lot of disconnect between the new generation who wants to do something and the past generation who knows what didn't work. And if we communicate on like how can we get it to work in the future, it would be so much more effective than just saying, I tried and it didn't work.
Just to quickly add on, I think something that I really believe in is like the power of imagination, right? And like just in our personal lives, we can imagine a better future for ourselves, but also for the communities that we care about and the communities that we see hurting. Like we can imagine better, right? And a lot of times it's like easy to shut down those thoughts because other people are telling us it's like not possible, it's not feasible, it's naive, it's idealistic, but having the goal in mind, like giving ourselves the space and the like mind to imagine, I think can guide everyone to a better future.
Okay. One more question. Well,
Question, just because it's so relevant with the social media situation,
I had like a MySpace and like an AOL chat. Like, so from your perspective, growing up in social media, and a lot of us are parents now with kiddos that are entering into a social media space, getting phones, getting devices at very young ages. What are some things, like almost from a parental standpoint, what advice would you give us on how to set boundaries? What is healthy, what is not healthy? What kind of do you wish that you would have known or had someone guide you through as you were being raised in a social media space?
Take it away.
Great answer. I think we're all bursting in.
Yes. Okay, so there's a new trend recently that's getting a brick phone. That's a phone, and at our age, I mean, and that's getting a phone that can only text and call. And so if people our age in our 20s are doing that, I think that speaks to what should happen in the younger generations. Yeah, like, and then people who aren't getting brick phones, they also have like controls on all the apps so that like you can only see social media apps at certain hours, right? So basically you're blocking everything. And I think like we lived through that in our teenage years and we see the harms that it causes.
I just have a comment on that really quick. So my daughter is getting ready to have, so I have an 18-year-old granddaughter, and my daughter is getting ready to have she has a 3-year-old and have a new one. So she was really, my granddaughter had a phone at like 8, 9, 10 years old, and I'm like, oh, so what are we doing, new age, what are we doing on the new granddaughter that's, 3 years old? She's like, the new baby, the 3-year-old, she will not have a phone until she's 16, 17, 18. She's like, I'm not doing this again, because of all the social media stuff that's going on now. It's totally changed because, my granddaughter's 18, but I'm like, thank you, because of course I was very prejudged with my daughter, because my daughter did not have a phone until she was 17. And then I was very my daughter's very mad, and then she got her daughter a phone when she was 14 or 13, because that was the thing to do those years ago. But now her daughter is 3 years, like, oh, are you gonna get her a little phone? She's like, no, she's not getting one until she's 16, 17 years old, and if she does get one, it will be for emergency calls only. And I love that you said that, because that is the new thing, only get the phone for phone and text only, because it's so important. The social media is ruining our young kids. Thank you for that question.
Oh, wait, one more. The other thing is like, I feel our generation is very anti-iPad kid. So like we see the generation just above us having younger kids, and we see them with their iPads. And so like I've heard a lot of my friends, we've all pledged to not have iPad kids. So even more than the social media, it's like the time on the screen, the time like getting the constant dopamine hits from the little games and from everything. And like that's the same thing that we're getting on social media, and it starts way younger now with iPads. Yep.
Oh, sorry. I do want to get on this soapbox real quick, and then I'm so sorry. I just feel like so in the era that we grew up, social media was kind of new. You mentioned MySpace. It wasn't as engineered to like keep you addicted as it is now. So I think when we were growing up and having Instagram, like it was cute, it was fun. I literally, like, if I like were to have a kid right now, or like I'm telling my cousins about their kids, I'm like, they should not have a phone. Like, I'm so radical. I'm like, do not have a phone. Do not let them go on Instagram. It's just like, it is so different now. And like what Gabby was saying about no iPad kids, like the media that people consume now on like YouTube, it's not PBS. Like PBS has educators and like experts in child education, right? So like every show and every episode has a theme. What you can get on YouTube or like TikTok or like Instagram, it's like, it's literally like slop. Like it's just like calorie dense, like slop. It's like engaging and that's it. And I feel like it's so important to make sure that you know what your kids are consuming, because the era that we grew up in, we had a bit of education on like internet awareness, like, don't give out your name, your address. I feel like that doesn't happen anymore. Like it literally doesn't happen. So now kids are extremely vulnerable, and they're consuming content that like is just engineered to keep them either, so as you guys know, social media either keeps you really happy or really angry to keep you engaged, right? So it's honestly like keeping them upset, maybe insecure, and constantly having them to continue to consume. So I feel like my advice is like, don't, like they're going to be like, you hate me, but like do not let them go on social media, or if you do, you have to be like very tightly controlled. But
Oh, are we running out of
Do you
time?
want to say something real quick?
Okay. Technology is a tool. It's supposed to be used like a tool. It's not supposed to be just something that you do for fun, you know? And so, yeah, teach your kids how to use technology because it is the future, but teach them how to use it as a tool, right? To serve a purpose rather than to brain rot on a Saturday morning. The two options aren't don't give your kid a phone or give them an iPhone. There are plenty of companies whose sole purpose is to have technology safe for kids. And then thirdly, your kids might not like you for a little bit for having the phone, but when they're 10 years older, they will thank you when they're in a room where everyone else is super insecure and they're the only ones who have a secure identity in who they are. So.
Oh, one last comment. I'm so sorry, y'all. But I was just going to say, when you say no phone time, it's no phone time for you too. And you need to be present with your kids because the first thing they're going to be like is, what do I do now? Well, now y'all got to do something together.
Love it. Love it. Okay, the great thing about this, I was just thinking, was that now tomorrow, we just listened to this, right? It's going to be really interesting to hear what our hearts want, need, think about, and then what the experts, doctors, panelists are going to but what they're going to be sharing. And I think in all of our minds, we're going to be having like the little switch in there going, because they said things, community, right? What does true success mean to us? What is truly our value and happiness? Imposter syndrome, like it's no different than what we think and what we experience, only it's coming from a different font, as Symone always tells me. Same person, different font, right? We all have the same things in our hearts that we really want. So I thank you again, ladies, for agreeing to do this. This has been very special. Do you want to make any